Welcome back to Book Readings for Life is Magic, Part 1, Listen to the Universe. Whoops, got a little sticky on the front. My new book, and I'm going to resume in the middle of Chapter 2, which is called Love's the Sound. Love is the Sound. And actually, it's also the name of a song I wrote. So if you'd like to look up the song, in addition to hearing about what's in this chapter, then please do. I'm on all the streaming services. Without further ado, I will pick up right where I left off last time. I'll read the rest of chapter 2, probably all of chapter 3, and we'll see how much further we get. So, here we go. Thanks for joining me. Okay. I've been working with an excellent voice teacher named Virginia Greenan for about 15 years. She has the patience of a saint in helping me to unlearn all of my improper habits and how to employ proper singing, proper technique to generate sound. It took so long. Years and years for it to come more naturally to me. She saved my voice and career. Virginia is very humble and more traditionally Christian in her beliefs. Many of her students have gone on to professional careers, specifically on Broadway, though she never really talks about it. I recently learned that one of the cassettes of warm-up vocal exercises she made for a former student made its way to Broadway singer Audra McDonald, who loved it so much that the entire cast used it on a recent production. Virginia is that good. She is that good. We tell each other about the little mystical happenings in our lives from time to time. She enjoys my synchronicities and often shakes her head in wonder and amusement. Unfortunately, in the fall of 2017, one of Virginia's adult sons died unexpectedly. It was extremely difficult for her and her other adult son and daughter. Then in the spring of 2018, two more tragedies befell her family. Virginia's brother-in-law died suddenly, as did her nephew. Sadly, both Virginia and her sister had outlived their husbands and one of their sons. Seeing both her brother-in-law and her nephew at the wake was very difficult. Virginia's sister and nieces had asked her to sing at the service later that day, but she was anxious about it. On the drive from the wake to the funeral, she didn't know how she was going to muster the courage. Sometimes performing for family is more stressful than performing for strangers. Someone knew Virginia needed reassurance. As she drove, the song Smile came on the radio, but the radio wasn't on. Virginia became a bit afraid and pushed the on-off button several times. The song continued. As the words of the song came to her, she realized there was no need to be scared. And then quoting from the song, "Smile though your heart is aching. Smile even though it's breaking. You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile." End quote. Virginia quickly realized that this was a message she needed to heed. Her anxiety fell away and she was able to focus on singing at the service to a pre-recorded orchestral arrangement. Later, she made a vocal and piano recording of the song for her nieces to keep as a reminder that their father and brother are not gone. They continue to live on the other side. Then there's a little chapter division here to indicate a new thought. Sterling, psychic medium, is one of the many YouTube psychics I watch regularly. Long after this chapter was drafted, he posted a video in which he said that when we hear music or voices as we're drifting off to sleep or at other times, it is always nearly friends, family members, and spirit guides from the other side attempting to communicate with us, to let us know that they're around and always with us. Sterling said they choose this time of day because our natural defenses are down and we're more relaxed. It's easier to communicate when the mind is quiet. When we turn off our logical mind and relax, they're better able to reach us. It's a window of opportunity, and the veil between realms seems to be, or actually is, thinner than usual. Music and voices are some of the easiest energies for spirits to manipulate to communicate with us. It's an energetic, physical phenomenon. Higher level spirits have more ability to influence sound waves and other energies than rookies. This clearly matches my own intuitive feelings about clairaudience. YouTube psychic Kim Copeland, whose channel is called Medium Kim, gave me a lovely reading a few summers ago in which she said my brother Justin on the other side helps me with musical writing and that it's good for the soul. Mine, yours, everyone's. Kim said my soul family is musical. Again, recall the angels on the sea of glass and fire with their harps. Back in the intro in chapter 1. Angels of Music is my group on the other side, or at least I hope. She also said that Justin, my brother, has a ton of gold around him, as if in a golden pyramid with rays. He loves nature and earth as I do. His energy is distinctly male, as is mine. After death, Justin helps to figure out how to connect arriving souls with their need. Justin flies, surrounded in gold. So naturally, last evening, I had yet another flying dream before I found these notes about him. I showed a group of 50 people on the ground how to do it. At first, I was only a few feet above the ground. Then I drifted through the telephone wires to get a bird's eye view of them all. And then this is in parentheses. Kim also confirmed that me, my mom, and my brothers, Steve and Justin, comprise a 4-person soul family together for a lifetime or maybe more than one. I hope to learn more about this in the future. And I've had lots of levitating dreams since then, too, since I wrote this chapter. Okay, another chapter division. New thought. My very psychic neighbor, Rose, who you'll hear more about in the next book, also had a profound spiritual experience with music and sound. Rose and I often get together in summer to talk about metaphysics and other life stuff on my scenic second-floor porch. A few years ago, while discussing near-death experiences, NDEs in parentheses, Rose agreed with my emerging belief that these are prearranged opportunities to exit our current incarnation if we choose. She definitely felt that that was the case given her own NDE many years ago. Pardon me. It happened as the result of an accidental overdose of pain medication after a minor surgery. Rose felt things get hazy, then found herself free of her body, her spirit flying at high speed down the proverbial tunnel/tube of beautiful white light. It was exhilarating and joyful, she said, but as she continued her journey, presumably back to Source, she noticed bright white energy forms, which she interpreted as spirits on the edges of the tunnel trying to wave her off, as if they were saying, "Hey, go back." Throughout the trip, Rose said she could hear the most exquisite music. She realized she was hearing the vibrations of the universe, and that creation itself was musical sound waves. I told her it reminded me of what I'd read about quantum physics, with all the strings of creation vibrating harmonically, per Michio Kaku. Eventually, Rose reached a point in the tunnel where she could travel no further and was suddenly returned to her body. She took a big gulp of air and popped up from the couch. It just wasn't her time yet. She knew it, too. There was further purpose to fulfill. Rose then told me about the passing of her beloved mentor, Mary Dickens. Mary used to run the spiritualist church which Rose attended when she was in her 20s, in the 1970s. Mary helped Rose to develop her psychic abilities, and their closeness was more like a mother and daughter, beyond even what Rose had experienced with her birth parents. Rose said that Mary was in her 70s when she died, but she appeared much younger. The day that Mary died was preceded by a heart scare at the church. Mary recovered, and everyone wanted her to go to the hospital, but she insisted upon going home. Rose accompanied Mary and helped her to change and get into bed. Rose then sensed the end was close. As she gazed into her eyes, it seemed to Rose that Mary had aged decades and hours, as if the energy of her powerfully positive spirit had made her physical body younger than it was, but that as she neared death, all of time caught up. Mary held Rose's hand and stared fondly into her eyes and told her, "Don't ever forget, you are a universe to yourself." That's a good one. She died not long after. The evening Rose shared this with me, I also spoke with Mom, who found the story about Mary quite beautiful and agreed that the idea that near-death experiences were potential checkout points was plausible too. I said that I thought it would be awesome if we could simply reach a point in life, hopefully years from now, when we are certain that we have fulfilled our plan for this incarnation and could just push a button to exit Earth painlessly and without regret. I've joked more than once that I hope to figure out how to do this in the presumed forthcoming decades of my life, so that when I'm ready to go, I'll pick my day and jump the body, hit the white tunnel, and surf back to God and my family. The Buddhists have a bit to say about this this as well, believing that ascended masters on earth are able to transform their bodies into pure white light after death in the privacy of outdoor transition tents, if you will. Would I like to master this too? Sure, but not by trying. If it's meant to be, then it will happen. Though I'm definitely interested in physician-assisted suicide if I reach an age at which I no longer wish to live, and my intention is to be cremated. Unless, of course, I turn into light first. Haha. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull that one off, but you never know. Okay, that's the end of chapter 2. Chapter 3 is called Early Signs of ESP and Quantum Connections. Here we go. There were signs that my family might be psychically sensitive when I was a boy. I was born in February 1971. My mother Carol's father, my grandpa Angelo Bella, died in 1973 when she wasn't yet 30 years old. We joke I could have been Roberto Bella. Then my brother Justin died just hours after his very premature birth in June 1974, and my younger brother Steve arrived in September 1976. That's a lot of change in a short time in my young mom's life. In 1975, prior to Steve's birth, and at the suggestion of her sisters, Mom visited a psychic named Louise Rickert. She called herself a reverend. She lived off Niagara Street, which I still pass when I come to your place, Mom told me. She did psychic readings in her basement, which was set up like a little church. You left whatever donation you wanted. You were probably about 4 because I went to see her with Auntie Anna and maybe Aunt Joni the summer after losing Justin. She told me Justin had big eyes and that he would come to visit me. Do you remember that? She said I would see him in my bedroom doorway. I had to call her the next day because it freaked me out. She told me he wouldn't come after all because he knew I was afraid. Then she said I had another little boy who was parapsychic. I agreed. There were some events that suggested it, but I can't remember them. It's more like you and I shared thoughts. A parapsychic is defined as a person with paranormal psychic abilities such as telepathy or telekinesis. The one event I do remember, this is my mom speaking again, the one event I do remember was once while I was cleaning the bathroom shower, I was thinking of Philip Downey for some reason. Philip Downey was the son of my parents' friends Ian and Pat Downey, who lived in Ontario, Canada. We didn't see them too often, but Philip and I enjoyed playing together when we were kids. You, meaning me, this is Mom talking again, you yelled upstairs to me and asked when we were going to see Philip Downey again. I was like, what? So, Mom was thinking about Philip Downey, and then I asked, apropos of nothing, when we might visit him. What are the chances of us randomly thinking about this at the same time? Isn't it a lot more likely that we felt each other's thoughts? I certainly think so. After my parents split a few years later in 1980, Mom visited Louise Rickert again. At a reading after the divorce, Louise told me about my dad, Mom wrote. Angelo, her dad, had been deceased for 7 years at that point. Louise said he was holding a bracelet with stars on it to prove that it was him. And this is still my mom talking. I was puzzled because I couldn't recall a bracelet like that. When I got home, I remembered he had given me a bracelet once. I think he found it somewhere. I put it on that night and slept on the couch because you guys were with Dad for a weekend visit, and I could never sleep upstairs when you were gone. In the morning, I was flipping the bracelet around, and on the back of each colored stone was an engraved star I'd never noticed before. That was right on. Boing. Boing! Exactly. Yep. And then a little chapter break here to indicate a somewhat new thought within the chapter. Okay, 14 minutes. My mom, Carol, is the youngest of 5 sisters. Her sister, Annie, my Auntie Anna, is second youngest. She and Mom spent more time together when they were young than with their older sisters, who were mostly out of the house by then and married. Auntie Anna's children were also close in age to my brother Steve and I, so we spent a lot of fun time with our cousins Chris, Lisa, and John while growing up. As a child and young woman, Auntie Anna was close to my mom and to their father Angelo. As mentioned, he died in 1973 when I was only 3, so I don't have any strong memories of him apart from some lovely photographs. Grandpa Bella had a warm, welcoming face. He came to Ellis Island from Italy when he was 13 and spoke no English. He had been orphaned from birth in a devastating earthquake and made his way over the ocean to seek a new existence in the young, aspirational country among hundreds of thousands of other global immigrants wading into the unknown with a pocket full of dreams and dust. When Auntie Anna was a young bride, she and her husband, my Uncle Bill, moved from Buffalo to Dunmore, Pennsylvania, about 4.5 hours from us. In Angelo's later years, he developed heart problems and had several stays in Buffalo, New York hospitals. Whenever he was ill, Auntie Anna could hear him calling her name, even while living in Dunmore, Pennsylvania. She somehow always knew when he was sick. On the day Angelo died, Anna was on her way to Buffalo and realized at some point in the journey that he had passed and that she would arrive too late. There is no explanation for this except the obvious one. The vibrational strings between us are real, sometimes expressed as a kind of telepathy, and we're all connected in ways we can't see, especially within families, either our earthly birth families or cosmic soul families, or both. Another reason everyone probably has psychic and telepathic capability is because we all come from the same star stuff. We are literally all stardust. 13.8 billion years ago, every bit of matter in the universe was united as a single, infinitely compacted mass. Was the dense mass the creator itself? Perhaps. For reasons unknown, perhaps God's will, the compacted bundle erupted as an explosive singularity, the Big Bang, from which everything that became something in our universe sprang over the course of millions and billions of years. My friend Barb reminded me of another great Carl Sagan quote: "The cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the universe to know itself." The moment of the singularity may also have been the beginning of time, as this phenomenon is inextricably linked to the rapid expansion of space and the speed of light. Time and space are married, but may not exist in the same way outside our known universe or this dimension of reality. In fact, most psychics make a strong distinction between the physical and non-physical worlds, describing the latter as operating on non-linear time or a different kind of time, in a way we can't fathom as humans. Each realm provides intelligent beings like us with a different perspective on existence. Earth is like a playground for the soul. And then this is in parentheses, this next paragraph. Tangentially, the very last time I smoked marijuana, which was only occasionally anyway, and which I eventually gave up because it messes up my sinuses, I had the strangest feeling that for all I've tried to learn about metaphysics and worlds beyond this one, that my human total knowledge is so small and incomplete as to be almost laughable, like I am an idiot or a child, cosmically speaking. Excuse me. I try to remember this feeling whenever it seems like everyday trivialities are important, because in the end, it just doesn't matter that much. Although it's hard for some of us to step outside our noisy minds. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, so end of the paragraph in parentheses. Most psychics claim that the true home of each immortal soul is the non-physical world, in which everything is pure energy and in which we exist as pure light/consciousness and undergo continuous guided evolution. Incarnations on Earth and in other places involve loaning out a portion of the soul for purposes of personal development and growth. Experiences here feed back into the greater whole of us there in a continuous loop. And perhaps as we evolve, our vibration also rises, allowing us access to more sacred, enlightened dimensions of existence on higher planes. That would be nice, because my vibration keeps going up and down, and I'd like to keep it higher if I could. In the physical realm of Earth, scientists speak of a concept called quantum entanglement. in which related atomic particles, like those that populate the universe, remain in a relationship and can communicate with each other even when separated by great distances. It's instantaneous, regardless of where in the cosmos the related particles are located. There is no time travel involved, and the speed of light is irrelevant in this context. It's actually quite a magical concept for a scientific theory. That's also why it's somewhat controversial and hard to grasp. For example, in a 2018 physics lab experiment at the University of Basel, Switzerland, researchers cooled thousands of atoms to almost absolute 0 degrees, the lowest possible temperature. When confined in a small volume, the atoms then became indistinguishable from each other. The new cloud of particles was now in a state of quantum entanglement. Using a laser to split the newly entangled atoms into subgroups, their quantum relationships remained intact, meaning that the state of one group of atoms continued to be shared by its quantum partners in the other subgroups, even once separated. When these groups of atoms were transported to completely separate locations, they still related and interacted over great physical distance, not unlike the atoms that made up my Grandpa Bella and Auntie Anna. When one set of atoms at location A was manipulated to spin, their quantum partners on the far side of the planet at location B also spun in the opposite direction in instantaneous reply. The atoms weren't limited by the usual universal speed limit for transmission of information, i.e., the speed of light. Even if these groups of particles were somehow transported to opposite ends of the universe, they would still communicate instantaneously. Einstein, Einstein called this quantum phenomenon spooky action at a distance, and struggled with how it otherwise fit into his grand theory of relativity, which accounted uncannily well for the behavior of matter at the macroscopic level, but less so at the microscopic level. Another description of this unlikely instantaneous quantum communication is teleportation of information. Again, this is where science veers towards magic, blurring the presumed artificial division between them. But from my point of view, there is no separation. Science and magic peacefully coexist in a somewhat paradoxical state. So then apply this to my grandfather and my aunt. In Angela's dying moments, Anna received the message like a quantum communication, his atoms to hers. It makes perfect sense for members of the same family to be especially sensitive to each other's thoughts, feelings, and general well-being because biological family members originate from the same group of atomic cells. We can think of this as genetic quantum entanglement with no degrees of separation. Again, biological extension, none of us are as separate as we might believe because everything in existence comes from the same original soup of quarks and gluons that eventually coalesced into stars, planets, oceans, and oxygen, all of which make biological life possible. This matches what many spiritualists believe, that all living beings are intrinsically connected to each other and to the larger environment. It's just that quantum mechanics backs it up too. Once you make the perhaps uncomfortable mental leap that what seems impossible is actually entirely possible, both as science and magic, it solves a lot of the problems that science alone can't. You'll be in harmony with the way things are, instead of resisting a truth that seems irrational and impossible. I mean, you don't have to believe me, but that's my take on it. Via our advanced telescopes, astronomers recently discovered that all galaxies in the universe are linked together by thin, flexible, and almost imperceptible strands of dark matter, a substance which has not yet been fully defined. The strands happen to resemble the matrix pathways of a human brain or the filaments of a spider's web. So, in any context one conceives, all that exists in this reality is connected. That is the end of chapter 3 at 24 minutes. So, let's see. We can get chapter 4 in. So we will. Chapter 4 is called You Need to Retire. It's in quotes. You need to retire. Let's roll back a few years now. Mom retired from her job as a principal's secretary in the main office of a North Tonawanda, New York grade school in summer 2014. Initially, for financial reasons, her plan was to jump ship at the end of the calendar year, but the school district added an incentive that would provide her with 6 months extra pay to depart earlier. She wasn't sure she was ready, though. She didn't fear boredom, but she observed among her friends that retirement sometimes led to removal from the daily current of life. I would retire in seconds if somebody offered me the rest of my pay not to show up. I hate working for other people. Sign me up. Amid contemplating the district's offer, Mom awoke the morning of June 2, 2014, around 2 a.m. to the sound of a comforting voice. You need to retire, it said, clear as the proverbial bell. She called me at work the next day to share it, and I laughed. Of course, someone popped by in the middle of the night to tell her to retire. Who else could this possibly happen to but us? As with previous mystical family experiences, the feeling that washed over Mom when she heard the voice was unambiguously joyful and clear. There was zero fear. She immediately trusted her messenger. Whose voice was it? I later asked. Was it someone specific? No, it was God, she said, although she pronounced the word like God in a way that reminded me of a New Jersey housewife, though I digress. God. I wondered if it was my brother Justin who came by, or perhaps another relative from the other side. Not that it mattered. It certainly could have been one of Mom's spirit guides or a guardian angel, too. We apparently have many helpers from the other side in each lifetime. I've learned that there's kind of a rotation system where different guides help us through different periods of time, depending on where we're at in life and who might best help us. They're apparently pretty organized over there. Mom couldn't get back to sleep after the message. She rolled around doing numbers in her head, trying to figure out if she could really retire early. In the morning, she talked to her second husband, John, about it. My parents split in 1980. Each has since remarried. Mom and John got married in 1995. John was supportive and encouraging. By the next morning, no concerns remained, and Mom embraced the message. When she returned to work on Monday, she filed the paperwork and subsequently received a notice that her last day of employment would be on my deceased brother Justin's 40th birthday, June 26, 2014. Perfectly synchronous. When Mom phoned, I was sitting on a bench in the early summer sunlight. I had been riding high since completion of my first book, though it wasn't yet published, and I looked forward to a fun summer packed with music gigs, German beer, bike rides, family time, beach, hanging out on my porch, and possibly, hopefully, sex with other people. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything more about that. Admittedly, the first thought that came to mind was that Mom's retirement could help pave the way for my non-secret desire to transition from the day job to being a full-time writer musician living the art life without starving somehow. Maybe she could help me promote the new book, or we could find a national publisher. I also thought Mom might take the opportunity to write her own book, and we could edit each other's work in tandem as a mom-son writing team. Then this is in parentheses. Mom has written a guest opinion column for the local daily newspaper for several years, and accumulated other short stories for a potential book she tentatively titled 500 S words, meaning it looks like the word swords, but the S is in parentheses. So it's 500 capital S words. 500 S words or 500 swords. And the reason for this is with each chapter consisting of no more than 500 words, the article limit imposed by the newspaper. What fun it would be. As time passed with a modest but rewarding response to God Laughs at Dirty Jokes, my first book, but no publisher, I self-published, as I did with this one, it became obvious I wouldn't escape 9 to 5 yet. Mom's retirement was intended for her own enjoyment. She had given us enough already, though she still helps my brother and I often because it's her nature, plus she can't sit still for 10 minutes. And in parentheses here, for example, we haven't had to buy hand soap in years. Mom makes more deliveries to our home than Amazon. Excuse me, it's true. The same is true for paper towels, toilet paper, and detergent. God bless all the great moms out there who never stop momming. Close parentheses. Mom began to write more, mostly short tales about her family and childhood, some of which were printed in the paper. We see life in similar ways and agree that simple goodness is best, though we're at different stages of life and express what we feel differently. Her writing is concise and subtle, encouraging the reader to connect the dots. I love simplicity, but my stuff always ends up denser. I apparently like to see how many tangential yet related cosmic concepts and personal experiences I can successfully stitch together in a single breath. Some people like a lot of detail. And some prefer brevity. About a month later, I had a clairaudient experience similar to Mom's. I was sleeping and woke up in the early morning to a voice shouting, "Hey, Rob!" It sounded like the beginning of a sentence that was to include more words but got cut off for some reason. The voice was a blend of my brother Steve's and my own. My first thought was that it might be Justin, but I'm not sure. As mentioned, my connectivity is less consistent or predictable than Steve's. I might be able to learn how to refine it if I took some classes. I've heard psychics say that it takes spirits I've also heard psychics say that it takes spirits substantial energy, effort, and practice to send audible messages to us. So I took it as a friendly hello from the other side, an intentional echo of Mom's recent experience. It also seems like psychic connectivity is contagious or occurs in waves, which may also have some relationship to astrology and the movement of planetary bodies in our solar system, like the sun, moon, and planets, since they each have incredible gravitational and electromagnetic effects on each other, which are not fully understood. For example, the magnetosphere of Jupiter is so powerful that it nearly reaches the orbit of Saturn, which is 403 million miles away. I forgot I wrote that. I forgot I wrote a lot of this, and that's crazy, isn't it? So, yeah. When I experience more synchronicity than usual, I often discover that my family and or close friends are as well. Often the form of communication is similar too, like Mom and I each having a clairaudient event around the same time. I believe we become more receptive to synchronicities when we take each day as it comes with an open minded heart, as opposed to living in expectation. We accept that where we're headed is good, and we take what's offered with gratitude without resisting the natural flow. This is often easier said than done. Yep, guilty. Um, there were huge challenges ahead for Mom, which we couldn't yet envision. Her retirement absolutely made things more manageable, as you will soon learn. Okay, that's the end of chapter 4 on page 50. That's a good spot to stop. We'll pick it up on chapter 5 next time. I'll try not to break so long. Thanks for checking me out. After this is up, I will put the links in for how you can purchase the book if you would like to buy it. You can get it through Amazon or through my website, robfalgiano.com, which links to Amazon. And what else? There will eventually be a Kindle copy that you can get, but not quite yet. I'm sticking with the paperbacks for now. And of course, if you would prefer just to continue listening for free, that is all right by me. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. I hope you're well. Many blessings to you and the people you love and care for, and the animals too. I got Mr. Shea right here. Let's just say goodbye. Oh, there he is. There he is. I'll say goodbye. Look into the camera. Just look into the camera. Say goodbye to the nice people. Okay. Bye.